Hey, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here tonight at Connect Group. My name is Dominic Insenius. I'm the leader here at The Heart, and you picked a great week to be here at Group. We have some fun things to discuss today. Now, if you are here for the first time today, or it's been a long time since you've been at Group, I want to remind you that it's a safe place to be where you are, on your journey of faith. We don't need you to pretend to be something you're not. You don't have to pretend to be spiritual in this community. You can be exactly who you are and exactly where you are. We have a few questions we're going to go over tonight that are based on the message that we had on Sunday. But even if you weren't at church or don't even go to church here, it's no problem. You can still be a part of the conversation, still be in the mix with us. It's all about getting into each other's messes, being there for each other, and understanding and learning more about our faith and growing in that. Now, we are in the middle of our message series called the Not So Old Testament. And what we're doing is taking time to look in the Old Testament and looking at these stories, these scriptures, these books of the Bible that don't refer to Jesus and say, okay, what can we learn from the Old Testament? We know that Jesus is the new way, and Jesus had many great things to say, and he did everything and made this sacrifice for us. So when we look at the Old Testament, does that mean it's old news? Does that mean it's not good to us anymore? Does that mean we need to move on? And I think what we need to be able to do is see how can we gain wisdom from the Old Testament? What can we learn from these stories? Now, this week we talked a little bit about generosity in particular, financial generosity, giving money away. And so we looked at a couple scriptures. One of them is in the book of Leviticus, chapter 25. Then we looked at Proverbs, chapter 11, and I'll have the scriptures on the screen that you can read those as a group here in a little bit. Remember to look at different translations. It's very helpful to look at different translations of the Bible. It helps us to get a good, broad understanding of what the authors are trying to say to us. So for this first question, I want to kind of ask a broad question, and I'd love to be able to have everybody share on this if you guys are feeling bold and brave here. Is when you hear the word generosity, what do you think of? What comes to mind when you hear the word generosity? It can be bad or good, or what you learned growing up, or what you just learned a couple weeks ago, whatever it is. What comes to your mind when you hear the word generosity? So let's take a few minutes to talk through that and see what you guys think. All right, now for our second question tonight, something that I personally say on Sunday mornings quite a bit, and when I'm talking to people about generosity, is that I love to be able to talk about church and money because it's a struggle that I had growing up. As I was kind of coming into my faith, I always thought it was weird that churches or pastors or priests or all of that asked for money. I felt like, why can't you just do this because you love to? Or I thought you were just trying to help people. Why do you need to ask people for money? Are people supposed to pay to be able to be helped? So when I was learning about generosity and learning about what giving really meant and what it meant to give from my heart, these are some things I had to confront in my life. So I'd love to be able to talk about it because it's something that I have grown in my faith. So what I want to be able to do tonight with you is, instead of just hearing me say it from the platform on a Sunday morning, I want to know if someone, let's say you were talking with someone or you meet someone, and this particular person that you're talking to, they have difficulty with churches and churches asking for money. They have difficulty with a church or a priest or a pastor asking for money for that church. I want to know, if you're in this conversation with this person, what are some things that you might say? What would that discussion look like for you if you were talking to somebody who had a difficult time thinking or processing, or had a hard time thinking about church and churches asking for money? So let's take a few minutes to dig into this. And again, there's no wrong opinions here. This is not a trap. It's not anything like that. It's really to get into what we're thinking and what we're feeling. And it helps us process through our faith when we talk about these things. So I hope you'll be bold and brave and share what you really feel tonight. So let's take some minutes to talk through that and see what we can come up with. All right, now for the third question tonight, I want us to read through the scripture we have in Leviticus. Again, it's chapter 25, verses 35 through 37. And in this particular book, this scripture here, it's towards the end of the book, and it's kind of talking through how the Israelites, how they were meant to treat their brothers and sisters, how they were meant to treat people who were in their community, in their families, in their area, right? So for us, that would be, the city of San Marcos, kind of our community. So what I want to know is after you read this scripture and you read about what the encouragement is and how to treat the people in their community, how to treat them with generosity. I want to know from you, when have you ever experienced in your life, when have you ever experienced this kind of treatment or this kind of community? Whether you have received generosity like this or whether you have been a part of being able to give generosity in this way. I'd love to be able to know in your life where you have seen this show up. So let's take a few minutes to talk through that. And I'd love to get everyone's opinion here and something that you have experienced here. So let's do that together. All right. Now, this week, here's what I want to know. Is when we're going over these things and we are learning about the things of God and we're reading through scriptures and all of that, it helps us to get smarter for sure. And it helps us to know more about God, definitely. However, the goal is to not just know more about God, it's to know God. It's to experience God. So the way we do that is we take what we learn and we apply it into our lives. We take action on what we are learning. So what I want to know from you is this week in particular, specifically, I want to know what specifically you are going to do to be generous this week. Maybe it's an act you can do for someone. Maybe it's an act you can do for an organization that you help with. I want to know what specifically you will do to practice, to exercise, to act on the gift of generosity. See, generosity is a choice. Generosity comes from our heart. What we said Sunday is a donation changes your bank account, lowers your bank account, and puts money in another bank account. Donation changes your bank account, but generosity changes you. Generosity changes us from the inside out because it comes from our heart. So what I want to know from you is specifically, what will you do this week to be generous? So this is the last question for tonight. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. If you've never been to Heartbeat, we are hosting Heartbeat this Sunday right after the 11 o'clock experience. If you know someone who has been coming to church, maybe a friend of yours or someone in your family, and they've never been to Heartbeat, I want to challenge you to bring them with you. Bring someone with you to this Heartbeat, and let's share the vision of the heart and let people know how they can be a part of this incredible thing that God is doing in this community. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your evening. Love you too much, and we'll see you soon.